Hello, my friend, and welcome to the Sales Podcast, episode number 370. With me, Wes Schaefer, the Sales Whisperer, your host. Today we have Mr. John Crowley. He is the author of Knuckle Dragging Sales. You are in for a treat. We had a great interview. I loved catching up with the guy, and I love his kind of retro approach to selling. We talk about rehumanizing the sales effort, which has really been my approach all along. People have always asked me, do I have a niche? Do I have an industry I go after? And I always say, I help humans sell to humans, because that just doesn't ever change. It has never changed. And here comes Ava bringing me breakfast or a snack that she's eating as she's delivering. So you got to love working from home. So let's just keep that in there. You want to say hi? Just eating peanut butter. She's just eating the peanut butter on the apples and peanut butter snack that they're bringing me. All right, baby. Go have a good day. I'm recording. If you missed a previous episode, number 369, it was with Sarah Worth. Sarah is a co-author of a book where they talk about and teach how to help sales managers lead more effective sales teams. And when I started the Sales Whisperer, September 1st, 2006, I bought the domain name. I was watching The Dog Whisperer, where Cesar Millan said that he rehabilitates the dogs and he teaches the owners how to be pack leaders, right? And I said, man, I do that. I do that with salespeople. I rehabilitate salespeople that have been mismanaged and abused, and I teach sales managers how to lead. And so that's what Sarah gets into, and that's what we discussed. So if you didn't listen to that episode, go back and check that out. Coming up next, episode 371, is David Newman. Really good guy. He was introduced to me by Tom Poland. I've had Tom on the podcast. He's an author, a mentor, coach out of Australia. But David is a really smart guy. We're actually working on a couple of webinars together. So he is also the author of a book, and you will want to be checking that out. I will link to it, as always, in the show notes. But we get into marketing, and he calls it, it's kind of like my book, The Sales Whisperer Way. Where are my notes? He called it like a great bathroom reading. What it means by that, what I mean by that is we have a bunch of short chapters. So it doesn't mean they're not any good. It just means we consolidated the nuggets into 2, 3, 4 pages of things you can apply right away. And so David's coming up in the next episode. As you've heard over the last couple of shows, I've got a sponsor now, the folks over at Rainmaker. They are a unique company, and most people don't know this. For a very short time back in 2000, I worked as a recruiter. I worked for a company where we helped place veterans that were leaving the service. And I would call on the companies. Every 6 weeks, we did a live workshop or conference, and the candidates who were leaving the service would come. We'd set up interviews, and it was a cool gig. And I got recruited away by a client. So that was another story. I'll tell that later. But it's kind of similar what these guys are doing, but it's not related to the military. They're in 2 major cities right now, and what they do is scan and pre-screen candidates, and every 2 weeks they kind of release them to the wild. Although it's not truly the wild. If you're the candidate, your info is protected from your current and your previous employer. But by creating a little bit of demand and that kind of timeline, the companies that are hiring, they come on board. They know they've got to act quickly because these candidates are being screened and released, and they're going to be scooped up by their competitors. So it puts a sense of urgency, just like what I was doing in those conferences. My last conference there, I had, I think, 11 clients, 11 companies show up. And I was just one of several salesmen. So, there were dozens of companies there trying to fight for, 50, 60, 80 candidates we might have. Okay. And so everybody wins in that situation. And so these folks over at Rainmaker, the average time to hire is down to 20 days. They have a 97% response rate, 6% candidate approval rate. Okay. Average fees for an agency Okay, companies are paying 25, 30, 33% of the first year's total compensation. You don't pay that much as the company. Okay, so you pay less money, you get faster access to better screened people, and you as the candidate, it's free to sign up and use the service because the companies pay the fees, okay, which I said are lower. So check them out, thesaleswhisper.com/recruit. They've got a special page just for listeners of the Sales Podcast. Go see the cities that they're in. If you are in a city that they are not yet in, let them know. Let them know you're interested. That will help them shape which cities they roll out to next. Okay. They do take the feedback. It's still a small company, but growing quickly. But because they're still smaller, you have access to the management. You even have access to the owner, who I spoke with, Mike. He's already had a couple of successful exits. So the guy knows how to bring companies into productivity, into profitability. And I believe this is another one he's going to bring. And it's already working. So it's already proven over the last year. So check it out, thesaleswhisper.com/recruit. Now, let's bring on our guest. All right, you knuckle dragon salesman from Nashville, Tennessee, John Crowley. Welcome to the Sales Podcast, man. How the heck are you?
I'm great, Wes. I appreciate you having me on, man.
So what is this all about? Knuckle dragon sales. You were probably a Marine based on that title.
I was not a Marine. I was not in the military, but I am a knuckle dragger for sure. What is it all about? Yeah. Knuckle dragging is about getting back to prehistoric times when things were much simpler. A time when you hunted and gathered or you starved and died. And in sales today, you persist and you win, or you quit and you fail. And it's not about, bashing in the buyer's skull or using brute force sales tactics that end with cease and desist letters. It is what we like to call a de-evolution revolution that brings us back to simpler tactics that work. And to be clear, when I say simple, I'm not saying easy. Running is simple. Running a marathon is freaking hard. So sales is, in my opinion, sales is the marathon of professions.
Yep. I like that. A de-evolution revolution.
That's right. Getting back to the basics.
So let's get way back, man. Let's just punch him over the face and head and just get him to sign. Okay. Kind of like the Jerky Boys, right? I slammed his head into the car. So you going to buy this thing or not? Right. I mean, what's wrong with that?
It's great if you want to make one sale and be done, but if you want to keep going back to that customer, they're probably not going to buy from you on the second go around. That's just my opinion. Look, if you're the sham wow guy, that's what you do. You beat them over the head with it because they're never going to buy it again. It's a garbage product. But
come on.
The sham wow. Do you have one? Do you still have one?
I don't know. We got these little the chamomile, chamois, whatever. I don't know. Those things are great, but I don't think they're sham wow.
Yeah, no, you didn't get the brand.
But wait. If you order now, that doesn't work, man. Come on.
It does on the one. It does on the one and done type sale. It doesn't do it on something that is recurring.
You mean all those cute guys making all the cute statements on stage about how to close and hard? And, is that just to sell tickets? Is that just to entertain people?
I mean, I don't know. I don't want to bash those guys. I think what they have to say has value. I spend a lot of time, mentoring new sales people. And I'll tell you that the vast majority of the problems that I find are when these sales reps take the techniques that they're picking up from, gurus, and I mean well-intentioned gurus, the latest, sales technique or the latest closing technique. And then they try to layer that onto an existing sales process, and they get kind of confused by the whole thing. So when I ask those people, tell me about how you segment your customers, I get silence, Wes. When I say, how do you prioritize your time? I get blank stares. When I ask them, what is your quota? What is your goal? It's crickets. And the fact that we don't know the basics of sales, that's what scares me. It's not the latest sales technique we got to worry about. It's about the basics that really matter.
Are you saying that if I have Tiger Woods 3-wood, but Jim Furyk's swing, I may have problems?
Yeah, I think you could definitely have some problems. I'm not sure if I understand that golf reference. You went over my head on it, but I'm going to guess that Jim Furyk doesn't have the greatest swing ever, is my guess.
Hey, he came in second yesterday at the TPC Sawgrass. He's got a crazy golf swing.
Okay.
but hey, it works for him, But yeah, you see it all the time. People like in golf, they're like, well, I like Tiger's grip. I like Rory's takeaway. I like Jim Furyk's way he clears his hip. They create this Frankenstein of things that really they just like, and maybe it's easy to them. So they piecemeal this thing together. You're saying that's when they get into trouble?
Yeah, I mean that's exactly when they get in trouble. They're trying to layer on the process on top of process on top of process, ends up in a nasty mess.
So instead of knuckle dragging sales, shouldn't this be the elite, high performing, esoteric left brain selling?
Yeah, you can certainly do it that way, or you can call it what it really is, which is knuckle dragging sales, which is what I am, a true knuckle dragger, Wes.
Are you saying keep it simple, stupid? Can we just get to the chase?
Yeah, I think that's not too far fetched. I think there's a little bit more that goes into it. A lot of it is the mindset. Okay. That's a big part of it. But yeah, I mean, keeping it simple is I would much rather have somebody who keeps it simple, but is persistent and is going out day after day and working through the different scenarios and using the tools to the best of his or her ability. I would take those people all day over the ones that are trying to implement, the latest, greatest selling technique into their existing process.
You mean I shouldn't have like a mini chat going to a squeeze page, going to a YouTube, going to a tracking pixel, going to a text message, going to a phone call, going to an email? I shouldn't start there?
If that's what your marketing department does, then that's fine. I think the question becomes, once you get that person that went through that really gnarly funnel you just explained, what does that look like on the other end when it ends up in a salesperson's lap? Are they ready to continue the sales process, or are they so confused by what they're looking at and they've confused the customer so much that nobody has any idea what they're selling or who they're trying to sell it to?
Right. So when you talk about mindset, I mean, there's a lot of people listening to this that are employees, right? They're salespeople working for a company. They probably are not getting enough leads to meet their own quota.
Yep.
But they do have to work within the confines and the boundaries the company sets. So from a mindset standpoint, what can they do differently to stay in the game, to stay on top of the game?
So I think you bring up a good point. Like in corporate America, it's brutal. I personally have found that politics in corporate America is exhausting, and the constant rejection that is just natural in sales, it's grueling. I truly believe it is the hardest profession on the planet. And I don't care how positive a person you are, eventually that corporate sales grind gets to you. I've found the most successful times in my personal and professional life came when I had a positive mindset. And I do believe that your mind dictates your success. So the first half of the book is all about the first half of the book is more important than the tactics in the second half, because without the right mindset, the tactics just won't work. And so the reason I spend so much time mentoring salespeople is because, and I'm going to be totally honest with you, I'm a recovering bad attitude-aholic. I have found that helping other people and asking for nothing in return is the best way for me to stay positive. So that's why I mentor so many folks, and I give up my personal time. And to answer your question, I think the most important part of the book is in that first half. It's all about the mindset and making sure that every day you're waking up and you're attacking your sales objectives with the right mindset first.
So how do you do that, man? You got a car on the fritz, got a sick kid, dogs chewing up your favorite shoes, got a long commute. 2 weeks left in the quarter. You're already down on your number. Your golf game's crap. You lost money on the March Madness pick. I don't know, man. I'm kind of feeling sad.
Yeah, I think what happens a lot of times, especially in that scenario, the first thing that people do is they pick up the phone and they call their buddy. And their buddy's on the other end of that phone in the exact same situation. And then they just start comparing. They start comparing how bad their golf swing is compared to the other buddy. Or their dog ate their shoes, but yeah, well, my dog ate my shoes and my belt. So it's always something worse. I think the way you do that is you minimize the amount of downtime that you have with those negative people. If possible, when possible, you try to cut those negative people out of your life, or at least back it down so you're not talking to them constantly. Because let's be honest, sales is a game where you are on an island. You are out there all day getting rejected, and then you have no positive energy coming from going to an office and being around other like-minded people who are trying to accomplish the same types of goals. That just doesn't happen in sales. And I think that grind gets to people. So to answer your question, I think that the key is to surround yourself with positive folks, the folks that see that the dog ate their shoe, but at least they have another pair of shoes that they can still wear. And they look at the glass that's half full, not the glass that's half empty.
Man, well, I'm positive my commute sucks. I'm positive my manager's out to get me. I'm positive the competition is just, they're cheaters, man. I mean, what am I going to do? Who do I turn to?
I mean, if that's the way you're looking at things, then you're right. You're going to have a negative outlook, and you're going to have negative reactions. I think it's one of those things where you've got to get yourself around people that are doing the things that you aspire to do. So whether that's looking for mentors or looking for coaches, somebody told me today about a sponsor. Not necessarily Alcoholics Anonymous sponsor, but getting a career sponsor, someone who's going to invest in you and is going to help you advance your career. It's going to help you talk through all the different scenarios that you face on a daily basis, and it could be a resource for you as you're facing some of the harder parts of your day, your job. I think that's a good place to start.
So you'd mentioned, something about that crazy funnel, right? And what happens once the lead is on the phone? What happens once a name is generated? Even, lo and behold, a qualified name. Do the old school communication and bonding processes still work? Is that kind of what you're alluding to?
It's exactly what I'm alluding to. I think, Wes, today we live in a Jetsons world. Our cars aren't flying, but we've got, self-driving cars. But unfortunately, it's the Flintstones that are winning in today's world. And what I mean by that is just because you now have the technology that allows you to go and construct an email and send that email out to thousands of people in a matter of minutes. In minutes, you can touch thousands of people. Doesn't mean that is the best way to go about doing it. So answering your question, yes, I do believe it's getting back to the roots, getting back to the Flintstones way of thinking, which is you have to look at every single individual buyer as an individual buyer. You can't lump everybody in together and treat them all the same, because that's the way all of the competitors are going about doing it. They're sending those mass emails as opposed to taking the time, going onto social media, using that technology to understand who your buyer is, what their pain points are, what it is that they're looking for in a solution, and then selling to each and every one of those folks individually is the key, as opposed to using our technology that allows us to mass spam people.
Yeah, but John, man, I'm supposed to make 150 dials a day. I don't have time to research, like what flavor tea you like to drink. Man, I got to smile and dial.
That's a great point. That's a heck of a day. I'd love to see somebody who makes 150 dials in a day. My advice whenever I get that is talk to your manager about doing a pilot and say, hey, can I just carve out a couple hours out of the week? And what I want to do with these couple hours is I want to perform a more thorough, in-depth analysis of the customer before I pick up and call them. And then what I want to do is I want to show I want to compare how well those deals close when I take the time to understand my buyer versus doing the smile and dial 150 dials in a week. And let's just see what the data shows, manager X. And that has gone over really well, because those beta tests, those pilots have been, one, eye-opening, not only for the rep, but also for the sales leadership. But two, it is more productive to research your customers and go about selling to them individually than it is the mass approach.
Yeah, I had Jeffrey Gitomer on, I don't know, not too long ago, maybe a year. And we talked about cold calling. He calls it gold calling. And I mean, I believe there's really no such thing as a cold call anymore.
Mm-mm.
You should be able to, in 3 minutes, you can find something out about the person you're calling
Absolutely.
and connect with them somehow, right? Versus just blind. So has that been your experience?
Absolutely. Like it amazes me how many people are afraid. I just did I did a presentation to a big pharmaceutical company, and we were talking about social selling, access selling, and going online and researching your customer. And I had some of the reps who actually said to me that they didn't want to go onto LinkedIn to check out the buyer because they didn't want the buyer to know that they were researching, that they were quote stalking them. And I had to jump out of my seat and say, no, you're not stalking them. This is you doing your homework. And I was like, when I think about people, salespeople that try to sell to me, one of the first things I do is I go and I look at LinkedIn and I say, did this person even looked at my LinkedIn profile? Now, 90% of the time you can tell because, they're bringing up things that they saw in your LinkedIn profile. But if you're not taking the time to research me as a customer, what you're doing is wasting my time.
Yeah.
And it's a disservice to your customer.
Well, and how many busy executives are even hanging out on LinkedIn worried about who's checking out their profile?
I was a vice president of a Fortune 14 company with a multi-million-dollar P&L. I was on LinkedIn every single day. So there's plenty of them that are out there.
Right. But would you say that's the norm, or were you the exception to the rule?
I'd say it's becoming closer to the norm now, Wes. I do think that it is getting to the point where if they're not on LinkedIn and sharing content, they're on LinkedIn and consuming it for sure.
Oh, for sure. I've been on LinkedIn. They sent me an email, I don't know, a couple of years ago, said I was one of the first 100,000 adopters or users of it. I've been on a long time. I'm on it every single day, but I'm not checking out who's checking me out.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So were you doing that in your previous role?
Yeah, absolutely. I always looked. And it was again, I could tell who did check me out and who didn't just by the quality of the conversation,
Right.
oftentimes. But if somebody came in, I would want to research them. I was going on LinkedIn to understand them, never mind them coming in to research me.
Oh, for sure. I mean, first thing I do is Google somebody.
Right.
And I'm working with a friend of mine right now, people that they don't dig their well before they're thirsty, right? Good old Harvey McKay, he's laid off or actually quit kind of in protest. And he's like, man, can you help me with my resume and fix my LinkedIn? I'm like, dude, yeah, but we should have done this ahead of time, right? They just don't do it.
That's, it's so true because Wes, that's usually when they pick up the phone and call me is after they've already been fired. And it's like, no, you should have been sowing the seeds into the ground of LinkedIn many, many years ago. It's kind of a little too late once you've lost your job.
Yeah, but you got to be also, you can't just rattle things off, right? Because it's kind of creepy, like you're a stalker. I mean, you and I, before we hit record, talking about where we're living, and it'd be better if I just kind of maybe in passing can say like, oh yeah, in May I'm going to my son's graduation. He's up in San Francisco. I mean, he almost went to Vanderbilt in Nashville, but he ended up in San Francisco. Kind of like name drop without mentioning it, right? Is it better to be more subtle versus just hitting you over the head with 12 facts from your LinkedIn account?
I think it depends on your personality. No, I think rattling off 12 fun facts that you picked up off their LinkedIn account, that might be a little bit overdue. But no, I mean, I don't think there's any problem with saying, hey, I saw you're from Los Angeles area, where you're from. It's just, it's basic human interaction. That's what we do when you meet somebody. I remember going through sales training, and our sales leader said, when you walk into somebody's office, just take a look at the surroundings, look for stuff on the wall, and try to connect with that thing. You're doing the exact same thing today with LinkedIn. You're just looking for that thing to connect on. And no, you don't want to go in and rattle off the 12 fun facts that they had put on their LinkedIn profile. But I don't think there's any problem with starting the conversation in a way that the buyer knows that you were on doing research. I prefer not to call it stalking. It's research. I think if you're on their Facebook page and checking out pictures of their family vacation to Panama City, yeah, that might be stalking. But LinkedIn, no, it's there as a working network.
Well, as a busy executive, though, do you want to get into all that small talk? Like when you look at spin selling, right?
Mhm.
The situational type questions. I mean, I know personally, I know if somebody calls me cold, hey, Wes, I see you're in the LA area, man. How long have you been there? I'm like, I got 87 things to do today. And one of them is not talk about where I live with someone I don't know who I know does not care.
Mhm.
So how do you find that happy medium?
Yeah, I think that, where they're from and the weather, those are probably the lower hanging fruit if you want to, go after things. I would try to connect on activity. That's the first area that I always look for on a LinkedIn profile. I see if they're sharing any content, or more importantly, if they've written anything, Wes. That to me is a huge key, because it takes a lot of cojones to put out some article, put your thoughts on a piece of paper, and then put it out on LinkedIn. If somebody's willing to write an article and put their thoughts, their beliefs, their feelings out there, that's something that they're looking for feedback. So trying to find a connection point through their activity is probably a lot better off than trying to connect on where they're from or what the weather is like.
Yeah, amen. It's a great point. So why the heck is there some 4-foot diameter metal blade on your wall? That
So
thing's serious, man. Good grief.
Yeah, I do enjoy woodworking, and I have always found the correlation between hard work and success in business to be one that I've enjoyed. So that saw blade to me is a symbol of hard work. It's about doing the hard work, and what I have all over that is just different things that people have sent me that it was inspiring. So it's a little bit of my vision board.
You got some big hooks to hold that thing. I bet it weighs like 30 pounds.
Oh no, shoot, no, man, that thing's well over 100 pounds.
Is it over 100?
Well, oh yeah, it weighed a ton. It took 3 people to get that upstairs. Yeah,
Not to mention it's a freaking blade.
yeah, I think it's about 5 feet in diameter. It's probably about a 1/4 inch thick of steel. So really cool thing.
That's awesome. I got to get me one, man.
Yeah, yeah.
So, all right. So going back to, you're talking about like find something on the wall and whatever. And I remember I've listened to a lot of David Sandler and read his stuff over the years. And he talks about, oh, the guy's got a bass on his wall or, picture or whatever, and, find something. He says some guys, they'll put that up, oh, you like fishing. You're like, no, I hate fishing. I put it up there to see if guys like you will talk about it. It's like, oh, that's kind of harsh. Um, are executives, are they that harsh? Should we worry about it? Or is it still kind of going back to what you were saying, find something professional to talk about versus personal?
Look, I think if somebody's going to throw a fish on the wall to deceive salespeople, they're going to make the salesperson's job very difficult. I just would not anticipate that being an easy sale, regardless of whether you tried to connect with that bass or not. Yes, I think as you move up the ladder, the higher up you get, the less free time they have, the less likely they are to engage in small talk.
Right.
I think it's more a symbol of, hey, I have done some homework on you. I'm coming in here with a basic understanding of you and your business. And my goal here is to see if you're the right fit for whatever product I'm trying to sell. But more importantly, I want to do it in a way that is meaningful to your time. And if now's not a good time, I respect that and I'll come back. But that it's just a small symbol that you have done some research and tried to progress the sales cycle as far as you can without engaging that person and asking those redundant, boring, terrible questions like, what keeps you up at night? That's the type of question that is an absolute time suck, because it, to me, symbolizes you haven't done any research into me or my business whatsoever. Now I as the buyer, am going to have to educate you on my business. That to me is the worst thing that you can do.
Why do people still send these messages? So this is from 6:06 a.m. So this is 8 hours ago. Wes. Now I have this little phone icon in my LinkedIn name.
Yes.
I did it to kind of stand out, but the added benefit is I know when people are doing a mail merge because it has that little logo.
Good idea. Good idea.
Yeah, I didn't. I mean, it was an accident. I'd like to say I was all that smart and figure that out, but I did figure out that's what's happening because my name has a little phone in it, right? And so anyway, he says, "I'm glad we're connected." So Wes, red phone. I'm glad we're connected now. I wonder if we could help one another in any way. I've worked with owners, founders, and executives like you for the past 18 years. I'd like to chat sometime soon, even just to formalize the introduction. Maybe there's a good day for you in the next week to have a phone call. Does that, I want to delete my LinkedIn profile when I get 15 of these in a day. It's killing me.
Yeah.
What's up with these people? Have they not read your book?
I think that is the perfect. First off, you said I more than any other word.
I. First three sentences, first four sentences, 4 out of 5 sentences, he starts with I.
With I, right. So clearly he has not done any research into you, Wes. So yeah, I think that's an example of the Jetsons. We've got this Jetson technology that's really cool and it makes spamming really easy, but you've got to take some time, research that buyer, understand what their pain points are, and talk to their pain points. Wes, I've got a folder on my computer, and I don't know if you allow cuss words, but we'll call it the shooty sales email. With shooty.
You mean the bullshit artists, right?
Exactly.
The crappy
sales email.
turd senders. Just say it.
Yeah, man. I take those and I put them in that folder because every now and again I like to go through and just get some material to riff on. But that's where that email would end up in my computer.
Yeah, it's crazy. It is. You know, it still exists. I think it was just this weekend. A guy was posting, and he's a successful entrepreneur. And he's posting about the response rate, how much better it is on Messenger versus email.
Mm-hmm.
And then another guy chimed in, and it wasn't an acrimonial, I don't know, one of those big words, caustic, right? They were comparing, and the guy's like, yeah, we've had better response rates, but we've made more money from our email list.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it went down an interesting thread, and of course it ends up with, you know, results may vary. Go ahead and test it on your own to make sure if it's worthwhile. But this guy's just espousing, you know, this great new technology, chat, you know, messengers on Facebook. And without that dialogue, whoever read that by this influential entrepreneur would just run and put all their money and effort behind chat or messenger without testing it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because it's new.
Mm-hmm.
Is it safe to say if somebody just mastered the basics and stayed Flintstone, could still make a good living in sales today?
Absolutely.
Because I think you need to think about this for a minute. That was way too quick. Okay, I'm gonna give you a second. Okay, what do you think?
Yeah. I mean, first off, if I was in your shoes and I got that email, I would look to see if that successful entrepreneur had a vested interest in a chat messenger technology or company.
I don't think he does. I think he was just, I think he's testing something new and he had good results and he was sharing.
Sure. He's looking for eyeballs, as many people to look at his.
I think it was premature share elation.
Yeah. Yes, I do. I thoroughly believe that if we focus on the basics of selling, understanding the customer, talking to their pain point, knowing their business, the basics, that yes, I would take that approach all day over someone with a messenger bot. And I think that they would be massively more successful.
Are you saying, John, I have feelings, just acknowledge my feelings?
Yeah, I think that's what the customers want. They want they want you to acknowledge their feelings, understand where they're coming from, deploy a little bit of empathy.
And when in doubt, show them a 100-pound, 5-foot steel blade, right?
That's right. If that doesn't sell you, nothing will.
Very nice, man. I agree. I'm glad you found me. I'm still, like I said, I have to go check LinkedIn. Maybe you're one of the good guys on LinkedIn. That's how you ended up on the show. But yeah, that's good stuff. And I agree, man. I love the simpler people I think they use technology just to say that they're using technology.
Mhm.
Maybe it's to hide from the deeper conversations. Um, is that a possibility?
It's a very strong possibility. It's a way to hide behind metrics. If I make my 150 dials a day, that it can't be me. I'm hitting the KPIs that you set out for me, sales manager. It's the buyer, it's the environment, it's the industry, it's the technology, it's everything but me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's always the case, huh? When I make my quotas, because I'm a great salesperson. When I miss my quotas, because the manager's terrible, the economy, the president, the election, a tsunami, product quality, 47 other things, huh?
Yeah.
So we're talking about the corporate world and all, but I guess I got to assume this applies to the entrepreneur, the small business. I mean, they're calling on the same people, trying to make essentially the same sale, right?
Absolutely. I tell you, where I get a lot of traction is in early stage startups. So, entrepreneurs starting up, and they want the same thing. Everybody wants the player coach. They say, I want to make a first sales hire. I want to hire that person, and he or she is going to be my future VP of sales. I just sit back and scratch my head and say, okay, I'm going to check back with you in a couple of years and just see what percent of those player coaches actually elevated their game and ended up in that VP of sales role after a while. I think that does not work very often. That's another example of trying to do too much with too little, and you're better off sticking to the basics of getting a salesperson who knows how to go out there and sell, and not give them the impression that, if you are successful in sales, you've got a VP of sales role sitting for you in a couple years, because it just rarely happens. Just two totally different skill sets.
Yeah, well, I think that startup guy is just afraid of sales, and just doesn't know enough about it, right? They're a good inventor, they're an entrepreneur, they're a dreamer, but maybe they're afraid of sales or just never done it, because it's not that easy.
It certainly is not.
I mean, how many times do you see like a company like that started up by a salesperson versus a technician, right? Somebody that's an inventor type.
Mm-hmm. I think there's a good mix. A matter of fact, I just did an interview today with a gentleman, and he started off as a bench scientist, so as technical and as detail oriented as you can possibly get. And he made the transition into sales, and now he's a district manager. So he's made the transitions between the different levels. But I think it depends. Going back to your question,
right? But was he an entrepreneur?
Yeah, he was. He absolutely was, and he evolved. And I think that there's a good number of those folks out there where they really struggle is the transition. Like, that entrepreneur may be able to sell the first couple pilots, a beta test with some customers, but once they get ready to scale, that's where it becomes too much for the entrepreneur, and they need to bring in some true sales help.
Yeah. What about compensation? Are you low salary, high commission mindset?
I think there's a mix. I think it depends on the level of technical expertise, whether you do that, and I also think it depends on what the upside is. In a lot of larger corporations, those companies wanted to de-risk their compensation plan. So the way they do that is they guarantee more in the way of salary, less in the way of fixed, and that helps them stay within guidelines so that they can hit their quarterly number, which is a big thing in big companies. But yes, to answer your question, I would prefer, in general, obviously there's a lot of variables here, in general, a lower salary and a higher variable compensation component typically works the best.
Yeah, because aren't you at risk of getting lazy salespeople? I mean, if they're making enough money to stay comfortable, are they going to work very hard to hit that quota?
Yeah, that's a big one. That's a big question. And one of the areas that I've worked in healthcare my entire career, pharmaceuticals love that. They're about 80% salary, 20% variable. And when they don't get the sales results that they're looking for, they often come, looking for me and say, what's going on? And it's pretty abundantly clear that they've got too heavy a fixed salary component of their compensation plan. It just is not driving the behaviors that they're looking for or the results.
How do they change that, though? I mean, I was working with a small business that had just coddled their people. And I was like, man, can I come work for you? I mean, they were just comfy. They were loving on these people. And they're like, things are just pretty stagnant. Like, yeah, no shit, they're stagnant. You're paying these people huge money. And it was an old profession. It was all cold calling. They couldn't reach anybody. And I mean, it was tough. And, but they love their people.
Yep.
And I'm like, I told them in the beginning, I said, this is going to be a problem. I said, I'll try. But, and we couldn't turn things around because they wouldn't change that model. I said, as soon as you start to change that compensation model, be ready for some turnover. So you better start recruiting because you're going to have people quitting when you mess with their pay.
Yeah.
That pharmaceutical, how do they change?
Yeah. I mean, so the thing is, you've got to have that tough conversation, and it's hard to make changes like that because you're affecting the dinner table. That change is going to go home and it's going to affect that sales rep, he or she, and they're going to have that tough conversation with their spouse or significant other at the dinner table. And so it really comes down to making sure that you're setting the right expectations out of the gate. Ideally, you're setting those expectations at the interview process so that the sales reps coming in know what the level of expectation is. And then you're holding them accountable to those expectations. Easier said than done. And a lot of times that's why you've got to bring in a new sales leader to implement that type of change. But I do not envy the person that has to have that conversation, especially from what it sounds like. It's like a family business, a long-term business. Unfortunately, here's the takeaway. If you don't change, you're going to go out of business and you're going to be disrupting more people's dinner time than if you would just make the changes today to right size your sales organization.
Yep. Amen. Very cool, man. Well, you have, I'm linking to your book, Knuckle Dragging Sales, A Primitive Process for Making More Money. And you have created a link for our listeners, right? So that's at knuckledraggingsales.com/Wes.
That's right.
Is that correct? So you've got what? You got an ebook for us for optimizing your LinkedIn profile for salespeople. Look at that. Go figure.
For sales.
And a presentation templates for internal business reviews with sales managers and leadership. Very cool.
Yeah.
So
totally free. Just go to that website and you can download it.
Okay. Otherwise, like a big saw blade may just like come out of a truck while they drive down the highway. I mean, it would be terrible if they did not do that, right?
Indiana Jones style, man. It'll just come out of the wall out of nowhere.
Old school, baby. I love it.
That's right.
All right, man. Well, John Crowley, all the way from Nashville. Man, did I miss anything? Is there anything I should have asked?
I don't think so. I think you nailed it, Wes. And if anyone has any questions, concerns, I'd love to talk. I'm a knuckle dragger. If you're a knuckle dragger and you want to talk sales, give me a shout.
Very nice, baby. Keep it stupid. I love it.
That's right.
Thanks for coming on the show, man. Have a great day.
Thank you, Wes. Pleasure.
Knuckle dragging, evolution, de-evolution, Flintstones, Jetsons. Amen. Focus on the fundamentals. This keeps getting pounded into my brain, both figuratively and literally in jiu-jitsu. Man, I can't tell you how many times, how many applications jiu-jitsu has to life, to sales, to business. If you can't master the fundamentals, it doesn't matter that you know some fancy move. If you can't get into position because you can't master the fundamentals, it doesn't matter. The same is true with everything I'm seeing in business today. I'm seeing people talking about pixels and how that's changing. People are sharing tips on how to make pretty Instagram pictures. And I mean, just all this. If you feel overwhelmed, if things seem just crazy, if you don't know what to say when you're on the phone, if you're afraid of using the phone, if you don't know what to say at a networking event or at a trade show, you're afraid to go to those places, then your fundamentals are out of whack. You haven't mastered the fundamentals. Maybe it's just been too long since you reviewed them. I'm going through a guy's mentorship right now, and 80% of what I'm learning in his program, not only do I know, I actually teach and have taught for a decade. But it's still valuable to me because it's reiterating things. Quite often, after doing something for so long, we can fall into bad habits. It's the curse of knowledge. We just assume everybody knows, or we've just done it so long, we get bored with it. But look, professionals stick with it. I've told the story before about hearing the band Chicago. Some of the original founding members have been with that band for over 40 years, 50 years. I mean, they're in their 70s. And when I heard them perform in 2014, it was the first time I'd ever heard them right here in Temecula. And they sounded just like their album. And I appreciated it. You think they're bored playing Saturday in the Park for 40 or 50 years? But I'm glad they cared enough to put their heart and soul in it, because to me, it was my first time. So professionals stick with it, okay? By all means, test new things. I just saw it last week, and I posted it on Facebook, I think on LinkedIn as well, but certainly on Facebook, talking about how McDonald's is ending their signature sandwiches, okay? Smart businesses test new things, but when the tests prove ineffective, then cancel it, right? Quit. I just interviewed Dr. Stanley Robertson. His interview will be coming up in a couple of weeks. But his book he's called The Quit Doctor, and why you need to quit doing stupid things. How it's okay to quit. You got to know when to quit, okay? So testing things, getting the results, stopping when those results prove, a certain segment gives you a piece of information that, okay, I got to change. Fine. So you got to know when to stop chasing rainbows, or a little TLC, right? Don't go chasing waterfalls. But I digress. The whole point there was knowing the importance and valuing the importance of being reminded. Like I was saying, I'm in this course, 90 days, and 80% of it is I already know, but it's good to hear it. 20% is new. That 20% is super valuable. But so is being reminded. Do you have the discipline to stay after it? Like I said, those guys in the band Chicago, even though they've been playing this song for 40 and 50 years, I bet they still rehearse. I had Jason Sheff. He replaced Peter Cetera. I had him on the podcast years ago. He was the one who actually got me passes, backstage passes, to go see them when they came. But he's still practicing. So do you care enough to invest in yourself to stay sharp? That's why I brought back the 30-day sales growth program, and I've merged in all of the content of the Make Every Sale program. I've been steadily pulling everything in, actually into Facebook. And I learned this through the course I'm going through, the way that Facebook lets you have a private group and set up units. So it's very clean and lets me reorganize as I add new content. I'm pulling in the old, I'm updating it as I go, and I'm making bonus content to augment what was already there. Plus, I'm taking everybody's questions. So I'm raising the price every week. It's now up to $397. Every week it's going up. But the nice thing is, the bad news is if you missed out early on, you're going to pay a couple $100 more. The good news is if you order now, you will only pay one time to have access to all this content. Because every week as I raise the price, once we get to $997, then it's going to become $997 a year, and then probably $2,000 a year, because there's just so much content, so much value. It's where I can still continue to answer your questions. Okay, so for even if it gets up to $2,000 per year, it's still under $200 a month, less than $50 a week, to have access to basically all the content I've ever created. My goal is to just put everything there. Now, There won't be phone calls, okay? Once I get a core group of people into that course, I'll be pulling out the inner circle. I haven't done that in quite some time. So this is going to be a limited group where you will invest more, but hey, you're going to get a lot more access. That's where I'm doing the weekly calls, the Q&A. You get a lot more access to me, but it'll still be affordable. But still, go check it out, 30daysalesgrowth.com. Sign up now. You still have a money-back guarantee. You got to work at it, though, okay? I want you diving in, doing the lessons, asking questions, okay? Getting things clarified. Don't just hop in, don't do it, and then ask for a refund. That doesn't cut it. Invest if you want to grow. And I guarantee I will help you grow if you do the work. So, again, check it out, 30daysalesgrowth.com. You'll get access to 3 places in the beginning, okay? Because I've got all of the 30-day sales growth on one platform. I've got the Make Every Sale content on another platform. That's why kind of following this knuckle-dragging concept, right? Going back to the basics. I realized things were overly complex for me. I was not enjoying the process. But by investing in myself, learning from someone else, I saw a better way to do things. And I'm bringing that all in right now. So the good news is you don't have to bounce around to 3 places. You can just go to Facebook in the group and start going through the lessons. I have hours and hours of videos and content already there, including a PDF of my book, the entire workbook of the Make Every Sale program, and then, like I said, hours of video already. And I'm pulling in new content all the time. So I'll always be ahead of you, okay, unless you just binge and, I don't know, do 8 hours a day. But I don't recommend that. You need to learn a little bit, then go practice it, go apply yourself, then come back. Okay, you should be spending 30 minutes to maybe a couple hours a day, maybe. But it's like golf lessons, right? Or working out. You don't go to the gym January 1st for 8 hours and you're good for the rest of the year. You know, go for 45 minutes, go for an hour and a half maybe, and then come back the next day. So you got to have time for your brain to recuperate, your body to recuperate, but you've got to go test things because what I show you will work. It is effective. But I recognize in your industry, in your position in your company, that there's variables where you may need to change things up a little bit. So you've got to take these lessons and apply them. If you're afraid to apply them, then you probably need the group even more. So jump in, okay? 30daysalesgrowth.com. Let me know you're out there. Give me some comments. Hit me up on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebooky. I'm on all those platforms. Let me know you're out there. Say hello. And as always, go sell something.